Welcome back to the show. Once again, you're joining the only podcast dedicated to law enforcement recruiting. I'm here with Doug Larson, the COO of Safeguard Recruiting, the tip of the spear when it comes to recruiting. There's staffing agencies up across the country. And one thing that we often hear, Doug, is from smaller agencies. And, I feel bad for smaller agencies because if you look at a larger agency, they have a lot of resources and tools that the other agencies don't have. Oftentimes they have full-time recruiters, full-time background investigators, full-time people at the academy. And so they have a lot of resources, but these smaller agencies, people don't know this, most departments in the country are 50 or less officers, but none of that's full-time. It's just people kind of doing it on their own. We've talked to agencies where it's the chief that's getting the emails from the people and the chief's dealing with all this stuff. And that was one thing early on, Doug, that you had a focus on with Safeguard, that you wanted to be a solution for every department in America. Kind of walk us through that idea and kind of where that's gone.
Yeah, well, we don't want to leave anybody behind. And we know there's smaller departments out there that don't have the resources budget-wise or even manpower-wise. And when they get down officers, it can be painful. We've talked to some that are down a couple. We've been talked to some that are down a third of their officers. You got 20 officers and you're down a third of them. That is very painful. And it's very hard, not only on the community, but the officers that remain around when they're working mandatory overtime. And it has a lot of effects on those officers. So we do not want anybody to be excluded from our services. And we know that maybe some things you can't afford, but the one tool that I want to make sure everybody can get their hands on and use and work through, because it's going to enhance their recruiting, it's going to help them get more people interested in their department and keep them interested, is Safeguard Connect. And that's a tool that everybody can use. We've put tiers on here so it'll fit for all departments, so they can afford it and have that advantage when they're recruiting and communicating.
Well, I don't want to name the department, but you're working with an agency in Virginia right now that's a smaller agency, and it's not a heavy spend, right? It's very low money. In fact, I don't know if any other companies would even do it, but I mean, you guys hooked them up with Safeguard Connect, and I just saw an email this morning to where their testing was very high. They're very pleased, and they're leveraging Connect to do a lot of that. How is that possible? So you have an agency before and after, you connect them with Connect and do just a little bit, all of a sudden they're blowing up at their testing. And for them, a large testing was 15 or 20 people. That was huge for them because it's a small department. Explain. And by the way, the other thing they talked about was the quality. I think out of 15 or 16 people, only one person didn't pass the testing. So they had a higher quality candidate and more candidates to take the test. And really the only difference is Connect. Kind of walk us through how that's even possible.
Yep. Yeah. The agency you're talking about, and they got a grant, and they're actually in Maryland.
Oh, I'm terrible.
And so, but
by the way, Doug, you didn't have to say that. You could have just gone with the Virginia state.
Well, we deal with a lot of people, so
that's right,
I get it.
Right.
And I'm a big fan of this group. They're a smaller department, the down officers, and they're letting Connect take the application, everything, the communications through Connect. And to get those kind of results, now a big department's going to say, well, 14, 15 people, who cares? Well, to them, it's a big deal because they're a smaller department. And once they solve their problem now, they want to go in and enlarge their department by 10 more officers, but until they can fill their vacancies, the council won't even listen to them on addressing their needs. So they have completely bought into the Safeguard system. They're phenomenal people working out there that are communicating with these applicants, and to have just one fill out, and that speaks to the filtering that goes up front, so we get people qualified, and the communication that goes in to keep everybody engaged, not only engaged, prepared for every step of the way, so they can have this kind of success, because they have 15 people interested in working for them. Would be great if they could just pick and choose and hire what they need.
Well, I kind of fell into this example because it just popped in my head, but now that we're talking about it, I remember this client now. Is they were very motivated to get started, which is a big plus for us. Like, it's very tough to work with an agency when they're like, yeah, we're not sure about this whole Safeguard thing. You guys do what you do. But they really were bought in early on, and they asked us for a recommendation. And so their process was a lieutenant was getting all of the potential clients, people from their website. And then she was farming them out to different people in the department to make contact with them, mentor them, get them to the testing. So it was very cumbersome for her, right? She was getting these emails in and she was having to forward them around, no way to track. And so when they asked us our recommendation, we said, let Connect automate all of it, meaning you don't do anything. Let the candidates come into Connect. Let Connect send the candidates to the individual recruiters. Then let Connect email these candidates over the course of 2 or 3 weeks to get them to the test. And so it was fully automated. And then in their first testing cycle, they broke records because of that. That's pretty incredible, isn't it?
I love it. And we've been trying to talk a lot of departments into doing the same type of thing they're doing. And they were able to come on and do it. And they're having this massive success. I just love it.
Well, here's what I love about it is they bought into the mobile first philosophy, which is what we tell everybody. We say, you've got to keep them on the phone. We know what the data says. 85% of every application in every industry is on the phone or they're not applying. And so, but this agency, just like all our other agencies, they're using the old school HR software stuff. And we said, this is what's going to set you on fire. And they just said, yes, let's do that. And so you guys implemented all these tools inside Connect where the application's in there, the automatic messaging is in there. I keep hitting my finger like I've got it, but you know what I mean. And thankfully, it has worked. And they're so lock, stock, bottom, they're in. And it's just the beginning because this is early on and they broke this sort of all-time high and they are pumped. At the same time, Doug, they're not doing all the work. They were doing all this work before. Now it's all been automated.
Yeah, don't get intimidated by how we might source you a lot of candidates because we're not going to make your life harder. We're going to make it easier by giving this system in place and automating a lot of these features and these communications. So recruiters don't need to be intimidated by us being a part of it. We're just there. We are your best friend. And these guys are definitely a model agency, and there's great vision on their part to recognize what needs to be done.
And I'm not going to say what they're spending because people are thinking, oh, they're probably spending a lot of money. But I'll tell you right now, they're spending way less than any hiring bonus you can think of. They're not spending a whole lot to get this. And I'm excited that they trusted us to implement what we have the capability to implement. Because a lot of agencies, they don't let us implement everything because they have these sort of historical, traditional ways of doing things, which is the impediment, which is the problem. The processes are the key. And you guys took over those processes and automated it, and it's on fire.
Yeah, they are. And I'm sure we're going to have some great case studies coming out of this and best practices that go along with this. One thing, Travis, though, is our show, our education, our articles, our training, all the speaking we're doing to people is more departments are starting to come around to this new way of thinking and how to be most effective in their recruiting. And this is just one, and this is a smaller department. We got some larger ones that are talking to us that want to do the exact same thing.
It's awesome, man. Thanks, Doug, for what you're doing. Thanks to you for listening. Thank you for watching. We will see you next week. And I'm excited, Doug, aren't you?
I am. And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you then.